Pnawn da, croeso gynnes iawn i'r annual AGM HEIW. So, welcome everybody. For those of you who are attending on Zoom, there are two parts to this meeting. One is the formal part, which is to receive our annual report and our Chief Exec's overview and our Finance Director's overview. Then we'll ask for a formal approval of the annual report. I remind you that this is a look back on 2022 to 2023. And after that, I will give opportunity for written questions to come in on Zoom for people who are attending on Zoom. So if you could please enter the question into the Q&A box, stating your name and your organization, and then click send. You can also, if you wish, send anonymously if you don't want your name attached to the question in the Q&A, but it would be helpful if we knew which organization, if possible, so that we can craft any answer to be more relevant to your needs. Very happy if you want to give the questions in Welsh. So I'm going to open this meeting first by a video which gives you some of flavour and highlights of the 2022-23 year. This is where we really test.
Opportunities for graduate psychologists and assistant psychologists.
Apologies, I've just started having sound.
Sorry, we do have a bit of feedback again. Can everybody check their mics are off if they're not speaking, please? And then ready to try again, and just check that the share sound tick box is selected before we share. Thank you.
So in the 22-23 education training plan, for the very first time in Wales, we introduced a brand new profession called Clinical Associates in Applied Psychology. Opportunities for graduating psychologists and assistant psychologists to train and to develop their careers. This is really good because it offers lots of opportunities to increase our mental health and psychological therapy workforce, and also it's good for the patient because it builds the team around the patient and it offers them more access to psychological therapies, mental health and wellbeing services.
HIW secured Welsh Government funding to enable pharmacy students that have taken their degrees in Wales to experience 55 days of clinical placements across all practice settings. This will mean that pharmacy graduates will enter their foundation training year with enhanced skills, which will be the building blocks for them to achieve their independent prescribing status upon registration. This will mean that from day one of practice, these newly qualified pharmacists will be able to use their expertise in safe prescribing to benefit patients and NHS Wales at any point of care.
We are really happy to offer incentivised dental foundation training posts for rural and high-needs areas of Wales this year. We took a number of posts out of national recruitment this year because we previously had problems recruiting to these posts. So to safeguard these posts for the future, we've created Wero, a new Welsh enhancement recruitment offer for dental foundation training. And we've successfully recruited 10 new graduate dentists into these posts for safeguarding the training and provision of services for the future.
November 2022, the Strategic Mental Health Workforce Plan was launched by the Deputy Minister for Mental Health and Wellbeing. The plan was developed by HOW and Social Care Wales. Implementation of this plan includes promoting the range of careers within mental health services and will create new opportunities to deliver care differently through multi-professional teams.
We were delighted this year that the board approved our HOW digital and data strategy. The vision of the strategy is delivering high quality and innovative digital solutions and also developing the digital skills of the NHS workforce. Over the next 5 years, we're really excited to see how the strategy is embedded across HOW and NHS Wales.
Over the last year, we've been developing the General Practice Nurse Foundation programme. We know that from the service, we need a way of training those nurses in posts. The General Practice Nurse Foundation programme came about through collaboration with Health Board General Practice Nursing Leeds, and we have the first cohort, 21 nurses, in place.
To ensure equality, diversity and inclusion is embedded across all that we do, in 2022 we reviewed and relaunched our equality impact assessment process. Uptake from our staff wanting to engage about equality impact assessments and identify the impacts and mitigate the impacts have increased.
One of the key pieces of work that we were given was to outline a multi-professional strategy for simulation across healthcare in Wales. It outlines a vision for delivering high quality simulation that's underpinned by key standards, that promotes interprofessional education and interprofessional simulation wherever possible, but also about simulation that's accessible to all across the workforce in Wales.
We went into contract for our new learning management system, which is called Atidaski. The system is a one-stop shop, which will give us a consistency of approach, particularly around quality. It also gives us the opportunity to improve our learning offer to meet the needs of the workforce of today, so that we can create things like micro-learning, which is the bite-sized approach that can be fitted in quickly into clinics, for example, for the busy workforce.
So last year we launched our new Advanced Clinical Leadership Programme, as endorsed by Professor Michael West. So this programme supports very senior clinicians across NHS Wales to develop their leadership skills. We've had really positive feedback from participants who've said that, in particular, the compassionate leadership element has really impacted their own practice and also that of their teams.
The Healthcare Science Programme worked with the Healthcare Science Network to produce some consultant clinical scientist guidance last year. Now, consultant clinical scientists are fantastic posts across all the different professional areas. They provide strategic leadership, they provide specialist and cost-effective clinical consultation. They have great skills in research and innovation, but they're not part of every single healthcare science area as yet. And so the guidance has supported understanding across the profession. Already we've seen an increase, a doubling in the number of people going forward for consultant training programmes, but also people going for clinical science registration as well.
Yeah, you done?
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope that came through loud and clear for everybody. And it just gives you sort of flavour. Before we go into the Chief Exec's overview, I need to say something very direct about how proud I am to be the chair of this organisation, and how grateful I am to the support and the influence and the input from my colleague independent members. It's a really interesting organisation. We are very privileged to have wonderful staff, and the leadership we have seen. Part of our remit is to express and develop leadership, but to see it expressed and being the living, breathing thing within the organisation is something that I think we're all very proud of. So everything you see and hear comes with a great deal of thanks and recognition of the dedication and the expertise. I should also mention the partnerships that we are developing, and I'll repeat, our ambition is to be the best of partners. So with that, I'm going to ask Alex to give her Chief Executive overview of the past year.
Thank you, Chair. And just to, I suppose, run a little bit on that slide about partners, because that's, I think, really important, as you just said, Chair. The video reflects the contribution from our staff, but also we do need to recognise all of the different contributions, help and support we have right across the system, not just actually in Wales, but also across the UK. And we're very keen in pinching ideas and good practice from right across the 4 nations as well. And our stakeholder reference group, which has gone from strength to strength, and we're really pleased for our ongoing support for that group. And we have really important conversations through that group around a lot of the new developments in HAW. So if we move on then to a review of last year, and we can only really cover some of the brief highlights of that in this presentation. So if we can move on to there's going to be a slight delay, I think, on the slides. Next one, thank you. Okay, so we always start with this slide because we are, even after 5 years, we are still a unique organisation in NHS Wales. And so it's really important to just start by reminding people about what we are here to do. And one of the things when we were set up 5 years ago that was really, really important, that I know is an ambition of this board, is we were not set up to just do more of the same. We were very much set up to drive improvements and transformation in the way in which we support and develop our workforce in NHS Wales. And that is really important to keep with us, no matter how old we get, because that is such an important priority for us. So the vision of the organisation is about the workforce, but importantly, it's also about the impact on patient care and population health, because we do not exist for any other reason than to support the NHS with those 2 most important missions. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be here. So we do need to make sure that we describe everything we do with reference to the importance of frontline care delivery and the improvement of population health, even though we don't see patients ourselves in HAW. And our purpose is very much to work as part of the NHS. You know, we're not outside the NHS, we are part of the 12 statutory bodies that make up the NHS family, to work with our partners to plan, develop, educate and train the current but also the future workforce. And added value is absolutely essential to us. So we talk an awful lot in HAW about what's the impact, what's the benefit, so what do we deliver by developing these plans, these tools, these resources, what is our added value? And we recognise that every other NHS organisation has got a Directorate of Workforce and OD, so we don't want to duplicate what other organisations are doing. We want to add that extra value. And our extra value is looking at some of those strategic, those specialist, those all Wales opportunities to really develop and support the workforce, looking at demand and supply through our statutory functions, which you'll see in the blue boxes on the right-hand side. So just to give a brief overview of those statutory functions, education and training is obviously in our title as an organisation, so everybody knows about that one. But that is actually a huge function, and that is where we spend most of our money. And our activities there range from planning, commissioning, delivery, quality management. We obviously oversee postgraduate, medical education, dental, pharmacy, but also our commissioning responsibilities across a range of undergraduate programmes, and increasingly developing multi-professional approaches and models, as well as work-based learning and apprenticeships. So as you can see, I've just really sort of touched the tip of the iceberg there, but there is an awful lot more that sits underneath that function. Culture and leadership development was a new function for this organisation 5 years ago. Thank you. And we have really developed our presence in this area and the offer into the NHS during that period from a very, very low baseline. And so, you know, we are basing all of this on compassionate leadership. So people will know about Professor Michael West. He's worked very closely with us because we do believe that having a unifying approach to leadership in NHS Wales is absolutely critical. And we only got to read in the media at the moment how very important that is not just to the wellbeing of our staff, but absolutely critical to the quality of care that's provided. So some of the offers through that we will hear about a little bit more today. Workforce strategy, planning and insights into our workforce, absolutely critical. Our workforce strategy we launched in 2020 along with Social Care Wales continues to be the driving force behind our plans, and I'll touch a little bit more on some of the workforce plans that we're currently developing. Not to forget careers and widening access, so how we attract and promote NHS Wales as a great place to train, work and live, and how we look at being flexible and responsive to the different needs across Wales, because what works in Hywel does not always work in Cardiff, does not always work in Betsy Cadwallader, and we have to make sure that even though we're an all Wales organisation, we are responsive to those different needs. And finally, workforce transformation. You know, how do we really respond to the changing situation we find ourselves in, whether that be digital skills and capabilities, new ways of working, extended roles, different approaches to team delivery of care? How are we really supporting the workforce to do that? And how do we link in then with some of those really important service challenges that face us, whether that be cancer, primary care, diagnostics, planned care, urgent and emergency care? The list is endless. And a really important part of our job in HIW is to plug into all of those really critical and wicked service challenges, because underneath all of those is always an absolutely critical and wicked workforce challenge that we have a role in supporting. So that's a bit about us as an organisation. If I can move on briefly to the next slide. This just gives you a few highlights from our annual report for this year. Some of which we've already talked about in our formal board meeting this morning, and some of which we'll come on to in the session that follows the formal part of this meeting. But just to pick up on a couple of them, one is about our new multi-professional primary care framework. I'm told the slides will arrive shortly, so I'm sorry that I'm probably in advance of the slides for the audience. But we have established last year our multi-professional primary and community education framework to really support the new and developing model of primary care that we want to see across our health boards. And this is really, really critical. For the first time, we are able to support the workforce alongside the GP training programme we have in Wales, which is of excellent quality. But we are able to support the rest of that team in a sustainable way. And we have launched last year our first new to general practice nursing foundation programme. We've got over 20 people currently completing that programme, and we have got the next cohort ready to go. So that's a real key way in which we're going to be able to support on a sustainable basis the direction of travel set out in a Healthier Wales about expanding and strengthening primary care services. And just to pick up on another one of these, on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see there in one box the new contracts for undergraduate health professional education. And in one sentence, that describes a massive programme of work which really has changed the pattern of provision for undergraduate health professional education across Wales, providing better access for local people into those programmes, reinforcing the importance of the Welsh language, looking at interprofessional learning opportunities, and really making sure that we've got that robust and sustainable pipeline for the future. I'm not going to dwell too much on any of the other things in this framework, because you can see the ones with the stars on. I've got colleagues who are going to talk a little bit more about all of those projects later on, and they are much better placed to do that than I am. So hopefully you've seen the annual report and you get a sense of the ambition that we have as an organisation to really look at how we do support that transformation across NHS Wales. So I'm going to ask for the next slide to be shown, but I'm conscious that this may also be a little bit on delay. The next slide talks a little bit more about our really important role in developing strategic workforce plans. So on the left-hand side here, you can see the 10-year workforce strategy that I referred to earlier on that we published in 2020. And when we did the work for that workforce strategy, what we were really trying to do was to set a framework or a set of hooks, if you like, that were really, really important in developing all of our workforce, whether we look at it through an individual professional lens, like nursing or pharmacy, or whether we look at it through a service lens, like mental health or primary care. And the most important thing when we did this work was about workforce wellbeing. That came out loud and clear as being the overriding factor that would actually help us move towards a sustainable workforce. And so that is, as you can see, the golden thread that wraps around the strategy. And then there are 7 other themes that need to work together to get us to that sustainable place. Because what we found from this work is, although the numbers of staff are really important, the numbers we have, the numbers we haven't got, the numbers we need, actually it is about much more than numbers if we're really serious about that sustainable workforce. We need to make sure we have an engaged workforce and that we're asking them what they think. So again, one of the things we're doing in HIW is the NHS staff survey. We need to make sure we have a good approach to attraction and recruitment, and that people can see all of the opportunities we have in NHS Wales, for example, through our Careersville platform. We need also to be developing our digital workforce. And Sian's team, our Director of Digital, has developed our digital capability tool that helps staff not just assess where they are on digital literacy, but helps navigate them towards those relevant opportunities to improve as well. So all of those themes are relevant, whichever profession we look at and whatever service we look at. And so what we've been doing over the course of the last year is developing that and applying that to certain areas. So this time last year, we launched the Mental Health Workforce Plan, which has very much taken on board those themes, and for the first time in Wales has developed a plan just dedicated to developing our really important workforce in mental health. And also, as you can see on the top of the slide, we are now applying that methodology in many other areas. So our pharmacy plan was launched in June, and we're currently working on our nursing, primary care, perinatal, diagnostics, dental and genomics workforce plans. And all of these plans will be built on a robust review of the evidence and the research, stakeholder and staff engagement, and an analysis of our workforce data in order to develop really concrete plans as to how we're going to improve and support our workforce better. So that's a really important thing that we've developed in the last year and something that underpins an awful lot of our activity. So if you move on to the next slide, Helen, if that's okay. I mentioned earlier on that our education and training function is one of our most important in terms of the money that we spend and also our staffing and our workforce within HEIW. This slide just gives you a few of the key points from our commissioning activities from last year. So on our health professional commissioning, which covers nursing, midwifery, allied health professions, healthcare science, you can see that we have continued to increase our investment in this area year on year since our establishment. And although many programmes have been delivering those increases as planned, we should also note that last year did give us a few problems in terms of our nursing programmes due to trends right across the UK in a decrease in applications for our nursing programmes. And that has resulted in, again, another improvement programme of work in order to make sure that this year we get back on track with that work. But we're also leading a really important quality work around health professional programmes as well, and I'll touch on that in a second, because it's not just about the numbers, it's about making sure that we're reducing attrition rates from those programmes, making sure the students have a great experience so they want to stay and work in Wales. You can see some details there of the pharmacy programme and some of the highlights there, with really good pass rates, and as colleagues will be aware, we've done some significant work in transforming our pharmacy education programmes over the last couple of years in response to the requirements of regulators, and we will start to see the benefits of that coming through into our workforce in the next couple of years. On our medical training, we continue to have a really positive trend in GP training recruitment, and we're really pleased now that about half of our GP practices in Wales are now training practices, which is really excellent. We've also been extending and increasing our specialty and foundation posts in order to develop that future pipeline of workforce, and developing good links with our North Wales colleagues across the border into the South East region, Northwest region even. And finally, on our dental area, we've again had to be very innovative in how we've recruited some of our dental programmes this year. and to do things that are right for Wales rather than necessarily part of that UK-wide approach. And really targeting and using things like our Train, Work, Live campaign to address some of the deficits in that profession. So I would say move on to the next slide, but I'm afraid we might have lost the presentation.
I'm just getting it back.
Okay, so nobody's listening at the moment?
Only for me, so everybody should be able to hear that. It's only my wife.
Okay, fine. Right, I will carry on and we'll make sure that the slides are available afterwards. So in terms of just touching on quality, so again, very important in HIW that we do focus on the quality of our functions, and we do use the National Student Surveys and the National Trainee and Trainer Surveys to highlight areas for improvement, both in terms of our own responsibilities, but together with our HEI colleagues and our NHS organisations. And that is a really, really important source of feedback for us. We've also supported in the last year further investment in our professional support unit in response to increased demand from our trainees. We continue to focus on building in quality improvement skills in our trainee programmes, and also continue to focus on the quality management of our postgraduate medical education and training and dental programmes. And also focusing on rolling out a quality management framework across all of our areas so that we learn from what we do in one professional area and spread it into our other professional areas as well. This year, we obviously have the duty of quality to consider, and that will require us to take an even more in-depth and robust approach to quality across all of our functions, and will really require us to develop new ways of working to demonstrate compliance with those new standards that are, as we know, now a legal requirement for NHS Wales as of the 1st of April. So just touching a little bit on some of our internal performance as an organisation, we would probably draw attention to the fact that we've made good progress in terms of our Welsh speaking in the organisation. We have relatively good sickness rates in comparison to what we would normally find in the NHS. And we also have a good age profile and gender balance across the organisation. The area that we need to improve upon is in our appraisal rates, which again, we've had a conversation at our board this morning about that, because that is so important in a workforce organisation that everybody has that appraisal and has that opportunity to have a personal development plan that helps them thrive and develop and really fulfil their career ambitions and get the right support. So we can move on from that slide now, Helen, and just touch on a few aspects of how we are taking forward commitment to develop our people. So as you saw from the video at the start, the people that we have in HIW, they come from a wide range of different backgrounds. We have people who come from educational university backgrounds, as well as from the NHS. We have people from lots of different professions, and we have people, you know, across education, digital backgrounds, and a very diverse workforce. And the staff are really at the centre of what we do. And again, the AGM is a really great opportunity to say thank you to all of them and all of the people that may be listening on the call today in particular, to say, you know, what a great job has been done over the last year in developing the kinds of things you can see in our annual report. And this is just a flavour really of some of the things that are put on in HIW to support our workforce. And communication is absolutely key. You know, we continue to have fortnightly staff open forums online. We regularly have 130 people joining those, and that's an hour of sharing information, updates, inviting staff to update us on what they're doing as well, and usually 5 minutes of fun at the end with the social committee as well, to demonstrate the fact that, you know, we have to work as a team, and sometimes we're under huge amounts of pressure, but the social committee enable us to also come together and really remember that there is absolutely joy and enjoyment in work as well. So moving on to nearly the last slide. So we feel had a reasonably productive and rewarding year. We feel we've been able to really start to make a difference as an organisation. not just in terms of our business as usual, but in terms of some of our strategic agenda as well. But we have also had some issues and risks to deal with, and it is important that we do reflect on those as well, because the road is never as smooth as we might imagine when we read our annual report. So the quality of training and student experience, as I've mentioned already, that is so important to us from a quality perspective. And there are lots and lots of pockets and areas of really, really good and excellent practice. But equally, there are areas that sometimes are not as good as they need to be. And so those are some of the issues that clearly we have to pay attention to during the year to make sure we work with colleagues to improve them. We know that over the last year, there has been a very difficult equation between the funding support that individuals get for education and training and the cost of living. So the NHS bursary in particular is something which has probably become even more of a current issue for us over the last year due to the cost of living increases. And we've certainly seen, we believe, some evidence of that impacting on our ability to attract the future pipeline of workforce that we need to. The publication of the National Workforce Implementation Plan last year did give us pause for thought, because obviously we've got the workforce strategy and we were just developing our IMTP. So we did have to adjust and amend our approach in order to embrace the National Workforce Implementation Plan. However, as we've been approaching that in 23-24, that is actually a huge platform for us as well as an organisation to promote what we do, to have that National Strategic Workforce Implementation Board to enhance the visibility of what we do, and actually that's a huge opportunity for us now that we've embedded that in our IMTP. People will be very much aware of the industrial relations issues that have been happening in the NHS this year, and for us, whilst that doesn't impact so much on our ongoing delivery on a day-to-day basis, that does impact on the things that we need to deliver to support some of the discussions that happen around pay and some of the non-pay measures that feature as part of those settlements. So again, that has been something we've had to respond to over the course of that period, and continues to be the case as we go into this year. We've mentioned this a number of times today already, how having the right data intelligence is so critical, not just to inform our plans, but also to measure their impact. And so that is something that is an ongoing risk, but through our Director of Digital, we have launched this year our data and digital strategy, which will set us on the road to improvement and to help us manage that more effectively. And I've kept the application issue to our undergraduate programmes till last. I've mentioned that already. So we did see this dip in fill rates in our nursing programmes last year. And that did give us substantial challenges around our organisational delivery with our university partners, but also it impacted on our financial position last year as well. And so that was probably one of the most significant risks we had to manage last year. And as a result, we did put in place a task and finish group that is still in operation now as we manage that process for this year. But I thought that was a good place to conclude and hand over to Glyn, because obviously that does impact on the financial position that we saw through the course of last year. And I will just hand over to our Director of Finance, Glyn Jones, to take you through some details around that.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. Slides are moving, great. First of all, I mean, it's a pleasure to present a brief overview of the 22-23 financial year. And I'm really grateful to colleagues, board, audit committee members and staff across HEIW who essentially play their part in delivering our key priorities within the financial resources available. Move on to the slide, please. Excellent. So this first slide gives you an idea of the key statutory financial targets that we're required to meet as an organisation. The first one looks at revenue performance, and as Alex mentioned just prior to this, because of the issues of, we can move back a slide, please. Thank you. Because of some of the issues around undergraduate placements, we last year we returned funding to Welsh Government around £22 million. Having done that, with regard to our revenue budget, we achieved a surplus of about £1.1 million at the end of the year, and that represents about 0.4% of the total budget. The second statutory target is around our capital funding, and this is essentially money that we spend on things like IT or equipment that typically cost more than £5,000 and things that we use more across more than 1 year. We've got a very small capital budget at the moment. It's £226,000, and we achieved break-even on that budget. So again, that was good use of that funding during last year. And then the final area where we have a key target is around paying invoices to our suppliers. It's called the public sector payment policy. We have a target where we have to pay at least 95% of our non-NHS creditors invoices within a 30-day period. And the important thing here is many of these suppliers of goods and services to us may be local businesses. So paying our creditors on time is really important, ensuring that they've got sufficient cash flow and also helps to maintain lower costs for them. So during last year, we paid 93.9% of those invoices on time, which is marginally below the target. So whilst this is disappointing, we have actually taken a number of actions to improve the timely payment of those invoices during this year, and it's really pleasing to be able to report that this year we're currently above that 95% target. If we can move on to the next slide then, please. So when this slide eventually moves, this one will just show you a brief outline of how our spend compared last year to the year before. And I've broken this down into three main components for ease of this presentation. You'll have heard previously that the majority of our revenue budget is spent directly on commissioning, training and education places. So it's about 87% of our total spend. So it's that big yellow block, if you like, on the slide there. And what you'll see is for last year compared to the year before, our commissioning spend increased by about 8%. Now there's quite a lot of detail within that in terms of how much more we spent on commissioning different elements of training and education. But broadly, in terms of our postgraduate medical, dental and pharmacy education, that increased by almost 13%, with a significant increase in GP and pharmacy training. And then if you look at nursing and our other healthcare professions, within that 8%, that spend increased by almost 3%. And that included a 19% increase in healthcare support worker training. So again, you can see there's quite a variation in increase, but that was based on intentional changes in commissioning of education and training. The smaller blocks then are around the pay and non-pay elements of running the organisation, running the various programmes that we operate, and obviously undertaking those commissioning functions. So you'll see that pay increased by about 20%. Some of that relates to a pay award that was made last year, but also interesting to note that our average staff numbers increased from 338 to 394, so an increase of about 16% between those two financial years. I'm not going to say a great deal around non-pay, but obviously you can see that reduced between the 2 years. And one of the main areas that we saw a reduction was in our spend on consultancy services. So again, it gives you a feel for how the organisation's staffing and workforce was changing between those 2 years. And if we can then move on to the final slide that I've got, which gives you, when it arrives, gives you an idea of the 5-year financial plan that's linked to our integrated medium-term plan, so our 3-year IMTP. Now, we presented this to our board back in March. The board endorsed that IMTP and it was submitted to Welsh Government at the end of March 2023. And what you'll see here is, although the plan is a 3-year plan, because of the nature of a lot of our commissioning of education and training, we produce a 5-year plan of potentially what those investment requirements would look like if we were to achieve that. That doesn't necessarily mean that that funding has been approved by Welsh Government, but it gives you an idea of how we would expect that investment to increase over the next 5 years. And I wanted to share this with you because I think it shows you the importance of investing and growing our education and training places across the NHS in Wales. The 5-year financial plan shows an increased investment in a number of areas, so nursing and healthcare professions, but also our training, doctors in training, pharmacy training, and also we mentioned earlier investment in some of our digital solutions. So within our financial plan assumptions, all of those are built into that, but as I say, that is very much dependent on securing that additional investment from Welsh Government. And I think it's important really to acknowledge the challenging financial environment that we currently face across public services in Wales, particularly in the NHS. And there is a prospect of having limited additional funding or in future years. That really means we need to focus more on investing in education and training where we know there's going to be an impact and a clear value that we can demonstrate in doing that. So the investment that we make in developing our current and future workforce, I think, becomes even more important as part of having a sustainable NHS going forward. Jochen, thank you very much. And I will hand back.
Yes. Just one more slide then before we go back to the chair, which actually is a 23-24 slide rather than 22-23. So excuse the typo at the top of that. But yeah, just to build on what Glyn has said, really, this is a slide that just gives a flavour of some of the things that we're working on this year and some of the really important activities for HAW as we speak. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but just to start with the first bullet point, which is, one of the challenges clearly in the current context for us as an organisation, as with all our colleague organisations across the NHS, is, how to really weave together a coherent response to the fact that we are in a financial recovery situation. We do have this new duty of quality and candour, which is really, really important to not just our workforce, but our patients. And then we do have these really important activities and deliverables and commitments in the National Workforce Implementation Plan. So, how we craft a response that brings together sometimes competing priorities around that will be a really important part of our work this year. And then just to finally pick on the last bullet point on that slide, which is, our commitment as an executive team, as a board, as an organisation, is to continue to develop ourselves in a way that helps us maximise our impact and value on the NHS, on the health and care workforce, to make sure that we can support that vision really of improving care for people and improving population health in Wales. So I will hand back over to the chair.
Despite the technology we seem to have got there. The next item on the agenda is to receive and approve the annual report. Now, I get to help write the introduction to this report, and every year, as I've said, we reflect on where we are as an organisation and how we've done against some very challenging things. My observation is that this annual report is an honest account of where we've got, and I would hope that partners and external bodies would reflect that we have tried to be good partners. We are trying to drive up the quality and the standing of education for health professions within Wales. And having a view on our strategic workforce plan, I think, again, is a really important factor. So with that, I'd like to ask the board to receive and approve the annual report for 2022-2023. Yeah? Thank you. That's a relief. Thank you very much. Okay. Now then, I did promise for our audience that I'm happy to take any questions that regards the 2022-23 year, and I suggested that you put them in the Q&A box. So this is your opportunity now, and hopefully the technology will work. Can't see any questions. Can we confirm that there's no questions, please, our technical people? No questions? Right. In that case, we are very pleased to have a session now of 3 10-minute sessions, which are, if you like, a showcase of some of the things that perhaps we're very proud of. So there won't be opportunity for question and answer on these. I'll just ask for the presenters to go through. These are all things that have been substantial pieces of work, and they're all things that we think will be great benefit to the system. So the first off, I'm going to ask that we have a presentation on Dysgu, and I believe, Joe, it's down to you.
Yeah.
And now then, who's going to be putting the slides up and changing them?
Fiona is now going to bring those slides up to Fiona.
So Fiona, if you could put slides on Dysgu.
Yes, 1 second.
Brilliant, thank you, Fiona.
Well done, Joe.
Are you okay to move to the next slide, please? So I'm here today to talk about Dysgu, which is our learning management system. Our strategic objective this year is simply to fully implement and evaluate the Dysgu learning management system, which is going to help us improve the quality and access to workforce learning. So the purpose of the objective is really to enhance HRW's reputation as a provider of quality education and training to the healthcare workforce in Wales. It will allow us to provide a fully bilingual offer across all of our learning resources, events, and with the capability to support networking and communities of practice both in English and Welsh. And it is replacing 3 legacy systems. So the system will also provide us with a standardised approach from a quality and a finance perspective for our learning offer and also for our reporting. And really importantly, it's going to be the vehicle for the operational delivery of HRW's CPD strategy and for our digital capability framework that's launched back in June this year. In terms of the registration, we work on a future-proof basis. So for the lifetime of the contract, we've got the ability for up to 160,000 users across health and social care to sign up and benefit from the system. Next slide, please, Fiona. So in order to get us there, we've worked with a very comprehensive plan, and this just summarises it at very high level detail from a roadmap perspective. We've been working in a really agile way to deliver the product, and that started with the delivery of what we call a minimum viable product, an MVP, last December. And that gave us the ability to launch a product with the core functionality in place that allowed us to onboard teams in an iterative way, and allow us to deliver additional functionality in parallel to that, so we could really get the programme of work moving and allow that benefit to come in as early as possible. So whilst we've been doing this, we've also been working with the supplier to look at the more complex integrations with things like single sign-on, so NHS Wales users can sign in really seamlessly, with a full Teams integration across the platform, which is our virtual learning environment of choice, and of course to benefit from our Microsoft license allowance. We're also working on a course booking payment facility and other LTI integrations such as video editing to really give us that seamless approach through the platform, and doing all of that whilst we're working with teams across the organisation to get them trained and up and running to use the system. The next phase is really important. That will take us into a period of evaluation, which will inform the future phase improvement activity that we'll be undertaking, and to give us an opportunity as well to consider further strategic opportunities for external partnership working. Ever since the system was introduced, we've had a lot of interest across NHS Wales from health boards and from partner organisations, which is really exciting, but of course we need to be in a position to be able to deliver for HIW and work on a governance model that keeps everybody safe in the process before we extend further. Next slide, please. So this slide just gives us two screenshots. The one on the left is our publicly accessible landing page, and the one on the right is the landing page of our learning site. The reason for having those sort of two points of entry are that we've got the ability to deliver learning style hubs via the publicly accessible page and surface information there that we would want to share with our wider audience that would not necessarily be locked down to profession specific activity. So it gives us the benefit then to signpost additional external resources and have a bit of a one-stop shop approach to bring everybody together and be able to signpost them back out to the relevant place across the system. Next slide, please. So from an onboarding perspective, that is progressing really well. We've had significant engagement and support from multiple stakeholders across the organisation. We've run a number of training sessions with the external supplier. We've had up to 50 members of staff attending each of those, which we've really welcomed, because that will enhance our ability to move forward at pace and scale to really maximise our cost model, our licence-based cost model. So the teams on the left are the ones that are represented on the system at the moment, that are split out by those with a multi-professional offer and then profession-specific. When this slide was put together, we had just over 4,500 users on the system, but this rate is steadily growing every single day as we start to roll out more modules. And we're hopeful that that will go into the tens of thousands soon as we onboard further members, specifically of the pharmacy profession, over the next 2 quarters. We're working really broadly across the organisation. There's a huge piece of matrix working ongoing. As you can see there, we've listed a number of different areas that we're working with, lots of different teams. We're supporting Hugh and his team with the more than just words support modules. Just trying to pick a few different things we've got here. We're working with the professional support units, support them with module generation, with newborn and infant physical examination, developing a module for maternity resources, and some training as well for some of our educators, such as the GP prospective trainers. So developments are in progress across all of these teams and professions with the aim to deliver areas across their learning requirements in the next 6 months. Next slide, please, Fiona. So in terms of benefits, the key benefits really start with the user for us. By way of introducing the new system, we really have a modern and intuitive user interface and improved workflows for our learners. We had lots of feedback on existing legacy systems, and that seemed to be quite problematic for a wide number of users. So something that we've really focused on with the supplier. Of course, quality, one of the really big drivers for all of us in HEIW in everything that we do. We've started working to introduce the quality assurance principles of online learning that we've been developing in conjunction with the CPD governance group across the organisation. And that will really allow us to make sure that everything that goes onto the system is quality assured, ready for our audience. In terms of a personalised learning experience, so when our learners sign up to the platform, depending on their profession, they are moved straight away into a landing page that is specific to them, so they can instantly see all the learning that's related to their particular area of expertise. But it also gives them access to the multi-professional learning that's available for everybody on the platform as well. In terms of value, we are working across the organisation to deliver a devolved operating model, which is where we're working with teams to train them up and skill them as far as we possibly can to be independent, to run a bit of a self-service model for the admin activities that go on behind the scenes, and also to develop some of the more simple learning pathways that they've got access to create easily within the system, with the guidance, of course, from the quality assurance document we've put together and the expertise from the digital learning team, who will remain in charge of the more complex interactive learning offer that we need to create. In terms of value, of course, that will allow us to drive up numbers far quicker than if we're just reliant on that centralised team. Important to us as well is, of course, that multidisciplinary offer and avoidance of duplication. So by having everything in one place, we can do constant reviews of the platform to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts across resources that could be used for professions where there's generic learning to be undertaken, or where we can get teams to work together to really focus on things like quality or finance offers that are going to be relevant to every user on the platform. And the final benefit really is around the increased reporting and insight. So having simply one source of the truth, instead of having to go to multiple systems for multiple data sets, everything will be coming out through our system, and we're working on improving that further at the moment with the data analytics team to bring all the data out of the system into our own data warehouse, so that we can really drill down into the specifics of the reporting and automate that as far as possible for the organisation. I've added some feedback here from optometry and from our dental dean. We've had lots of lovely feedback. We've had lots of support, as I said, from multiple stakeholders who have been incredibly supportive of our work and very complimentary of the effort that's gone into it from our team. But really lovely to actually hear from external users as well, and to hear that the optometry profession really liked the platform and have been very complimentary about the modules that have been produced to date, and also that the Chief Dental Officer found the system easy to use, which was nice to hear. So to summarise, we've seen early benefits through the move to one system, and that's really enabled our consistency of approach and providing that enhanced quality, functionality and reporting capability for a wider audience.
Yeah. Right, we'll go on now to our advanced clinical leadership programme, and who we got here to do that? Dina, there you are. So I'm looking at your face. Dina, thank you very much. So Fiona, can you put Dina's slides up, please? Fiona, are you there?
Yes, apologies, just switching over.
Yeah.
So 1 second.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for sharing my slides for me. It's a big help. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all today about our new Advanced Clinical Leadership Programme. I was absolutely delighted on joining Health Education Improvement Wales 2.5 years ago to be tasked immediately with designing and implementing a programme for our senior clinicians. The reason behind that is that while some of the people in this cohort may have superb technical skills, possibly by being a superb ankle surgeon or fantastic head of community nursing, but often in their career trajectory so far, they often haven't had the opportunity for any managerial, let alone leadership development opportunities. So we based our programme across 3 foundations. One was recent research into leadership development activities, so a literature review, if you like, of what actually works, what the modern approach, if you like, to developing our leaders. We also explored similar programmes across the UK, looking at NHS England, King's Funds, and also we branched across to the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, who run a similar multidisciplinary programme, which gave us a lot of ideas about what we wanted to do. And then, of course, we also engaged with our stakeholders across the whole of NHS Wales to ask them what they thought we needed and built our programme around that. As soon as we had an outline of the programme we wanted to deliver, we tested demand by inviting expressions of interest, and we received over 200 expressions of interest initially. Could you go to the next slide, please? So we knew then from gauging that level of interest, this gave us some confidence and assurance, if you like, that the project that we had designed was appropriate, that it was relevant and pitched at the correct level for this group of clinicians. Our thought process was very much that by identifying the right senior clinicians then, with both the ambition and capability to lead in senior roles in the future, all we needed to do was top them up, if you like, or equip them with a toolbox of leadership skills to support them then to step forward to take up the very senior clinician roles across the NHS Wales. So our programme was designed aiming very much at heads of service, clinical directors, etc., whose next step in their career may well be assistant director or deputy director level role. So this is a fully multi-professional programme, and it's designed heads of service, clinical directors, etc. So that those are our target audience, if you like. We were keen that the programme was open to all, so it's fully accessible to everyone. We recruit through self-nomination, but then we also go back to the organisations just to check that these guys have the support of their organisation, so we know we're getting the right people on the programme. We deliver the programme now in 2-day blocks, and this is to help give them a very immersive experience, so they can leave the day-to-day pressures of managing waiting lists, whatever, behind, and come in and just concentrate on themselves just for a couple of days every other month. And we've also done that as well to support people who are travelling long distances. We have quite a group coming down from North Wales, from West Wales, so we try and make it easier for them, and the 2-day blocks seem to help them with that. Expanding networks is a huge part of the programme. So the multidisciplinary nature means that we can bring together very like-minded clinicians from a variety of professions and also across organisations who will probably never meet each other in their normal working lives. Just to give you a little flavour of that, the participants that you can see in the photo there is just a cross-section of some of our participants, and you may recognise some of them. We have a renal pharmacist lead there from Halvar, a pharmacist with a national role about improving prescribing practice across the whole of Wales. We have an obs and gynae medical clinical director. We have a head of psychology and a clinical laboratory lead. Also in the picture is a GP lead for same-day emergency care, and then also their secondary quick care equivalent leading for unscheduled care, but all from different organisations. Next slide, please. So then the content of the proposal, just jump back then. I think we skipped that. There's another one there after that. Okay, so the programme consists of basically across 3 modules. One is about leading self, one is about then how they step up and lead teams, and then the other about leading systems. And that's all underpinned by 3 threads which run across all our modules, which is compassionate leadership, well-being, both of themselves and their teams, so they learn to recognise perhaps warning signs and understand what they can do to support their team members. And then also leadership or service change project delivery, and we help them with that by equipping them with quality improvement techniques, which is supported by our Christine here in HNIW. They also receive mentorship from an executive director, and then they mentor themselves, participants on more junior programs that we also run. Is what's leadership if you're not developing a pipeline of leaders behind you. We deliver in a variety of ways through action learning sets, through residential learning communities. They have a range of leadership diagnostics so they can understand their style of, their preferred style of leadership and perhaps what they need to develop further. And then we also offer those national networking opportunities. Oh, that's okay, fine. So this slide now just shows you the demographics of our first 2 cohorts. You'll see we have 35 females, 21 males split on the programme. In terms of age group, they are clustered around that 35 to 54 years age group, so our participants are likely to be in the midpoints of their careers. But we also need to bear in mind that the demographics also show us that a lot of these participants are juggling everyday care commitments on top of very, very busy roles, so we have to be compassionate and understanding about that for them. There's a great professional mix, as you can see up on the pie chart. The largest proportion have been medics, but also all other professions are represented as well. Would you go to the next slide, please? And the next one, please. So we've had some fantastic endorsements for the programme. We're delighted that Professor Michael West himself has actually personally endorsed the programme, and you can see his quote there about this programme offering the most superior opportunity for clinical leads to shape the future of health and care in Wales. We've also had a range of endorsements from current and previous programme participants, and you'll see there some of them saying that it's the best leadership programme they've done in 20 odd years in the NHS. So that's fabulous reassurance for us. Could you go to the next slide, please? And on to the next one, and we'll come back to the video if that's okay. So the next steps of the programme, our applications for cohorts 3 and 4 have been open through the summer, and we, at the time these slides were developed, we expected to receive around 200 applications, and my prediction was fairly correct in that we've had 210. And that's just for 2 cohorts of 28 places. So one of the biggest challenges for me is matching the demand that we're getting with the capacity we've got to deliver. Cohort 1 have completed their programme, and they finished in June this year. The chairman very kindly came to that event and supported us. We have cohort 2, which are live at the moment. They will complete in January 2024. And then we will commence 2 further cohorts, that's cohort 3 and 4, will commence in February next year. And one of those will be based in North Wales. We will continue to refine and refresh the programme content. I think that's really important to keep it very relevant, especially with the press that we see lately around the respiratory issues, and also the Royal College of Surgeons and sexual abuse report. So we need to make sure we're on top of that and delivering what we need to make sure these people can go back and deal with these situations in real life. Also aiming then to put together the alumni from each cohort into a vibrant community of practice, to have some events running to keep them in touch with each other and build these pods then within the organisations of keen, committed, compassionate leaders. We're working hard behind the scenes to measure the programme impact. Obviously, it's early days, but we have seen a lot of promotions following attendance of the programme, and a few comments that, well, I wouldn't have even applied for another job for a promotion if I hadn't been on the programme. We're also working closely with the University of South Wales, who are developing a pilot with us on academic accreditation, but based on micro-credentials, which for this group is really important. They haven't got the time to be writing great long academic essays and then, you know, all the referencing and all that goes with it. What they need is tools, practical tools that they can develop. So we're helping them with that, and we'll have some news for that shortly for you. Can we jump to the video now, please? Got a little video together because I think I can tell you all about the programme, but it's better to hear it from the horse's mouth themselves, isn't it?
One of the slides, wasn't it?
Fiona, it was in the penultimate slide.
I'd say.
Sorry, I'm just jumping back now.
Thank you.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just got blocked. I'm going to play it from another place. Can everybody see that?
Yes, thank you.
This is the Advanced Clinical Leadership Programme, and this is the first cohort that Health Education and Improvement Wales have run. The plan is that we're developing a cohort of compassionate and collaborative leaders across the whole NHS, so that we're building a movement, if you like, towards compassionate leadership, which will be spread through our staff and which we know patients will benefit from as well.
Course has focused on, like we've looked at compassionate leadership, we've looked at kind of our role within a team, and that's the focus of us being away over these few days, kind of how we function in a team, how we lead a team, but also how we're a member of the team, how we show up in that way. It's been good to have some special speakers coming in. It's been great to have the Hogan assessment and really delve into kind of how we show up ourselves in the workplace.
This outdoor residential thing was a bit anxious about it, because I think I didn't look for a lot of information to know what we were going to do when we get here. But I've been pleasantly surprised how I've actually kind of enjoyed it, and it's really been enlightening, and it's given me some practical experiences on the activities to reflect on and think about and discuss with colleagues. And it has actually been very good networking. And now I can say I know someone in almost every health board.
But it's also actually been really great to get to know the other people who are on the course. And I think actually that's probably one of the main things that's really been supportive kind of in my day job, in what I'm doing, is kind of being able to pull on other people's expertise. It's always helpful. I love a personality profile, and so that's been really great. And some of those are really expensive, so it's really great to have that as part of the course.
For me, the thing that I've enjoyed so far was the lectures on compassionate leadership, and that has made me reflect a lot on the experience that I'm seeing in work, especially after the pandemic, and the stress levels, high staff turnover, and the the lectures on compassionate leadership were so enlightening and eye-opening. And I actually feel that if everyone in the NHS has training in compassionate leadership, we can deal with most of the problems that we are having, the low morale, the high staff turnover.
I think this kind of programme helps to be able to take a pause. I think the NHS is full of very skilled people, very specialist people. We all know what we're doing in our jobs. We're all very busy. I think that sometimes we forget to take a step back and reflect. I think that sometimes compassion can sometimes be low amongst the staff. Like, we're always generally compassionate towards our patients, but within our teams, things can be quite rushed.
The knowledge you learn, you will acquire on this course is not just for your role in the NHS. It can be for other things outside and for life in general. So I would say if you have a chance to do it, this is one of, for me, the best courses I've done in my 20 years in the NHS.
Good. Thank you very much. So we're running 20 minutes over, but we've got another presentation, and I think you're doing that, Bush, so no pressure, no pressure.
Okay.
It's on simulation. Fiona, are you on to it?
So while we're waiting for the slides, I just start by saying that we've got an excellent faculty delivering our simulation strategy that I'm going to talk about. So Sarah Catherine Cook leads this faculty, encompasses Schumann Mitro, both medical, Claire Hawker and Bridie Jones, who are from a nursing background. And you mustn't forget Christina Diaz-Navarro, who left us recently, but had a big input into the national ASPE standards, and the ASPE stands for the Association for Assimilated Practice in Healthcare, which sets the standards for the UK. So important to recognise that they are in the background of this. Anton and Tom Lawson support them, and Lisa and myself chair the simulation strategy meetings. So if we can get to the first slide, that'd be good, because there's a mission statement on there that I wanted to just briefly dwell on. So the vision is aspiring for excellence into professional simulation-based education and training, which HIW will lead the development of a highly trained healthcare workforce able to deliver high quality, safe and sustainable care across Wales. And the first bullet point in the mission statement, if you can move on to slide 3, please, Fiona. The first bullet point is to be inspiring, promoting and supporting the delivery of exemplary, high quality, interprofessional simulation-based education and training that's accessible to all across the healthcare workforce of Wales. And that's a theme that will be coming through the whole of this presentation. The other bullet points refer to cost effectiveness and value, making sure there's quality improvement linked to it. It's across the whole of Wales and not in one site only. And it's based on supporting patient care, service users and learners. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So the next slide is basically to tell us that it's aligned to us previous strategic objectives in our IMTPs. And that started back in 2020, and it took a lot of engagement. Next slide, please. To get us to the point of publishing it in November of 2022. We had over 9 hours of engagement with our colleagues and recordings, which led to the development of this strategy, and it was, as I say, published in November of last year. We move on to the next slide, please, Fiona. So the next slide is dwelling on the standards that not only apply to us as a faculty, but also to any local faculty in any of our organisations. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but the themes throughout all of this are based on safety of the patients, but also safety of the learners when they may get something wrong in their simulation training, that we do it in a place of safety with compassion, with support for that individual, remembering that if they have come out with a poor outcome from their training, that we've got to put patient safety first. It's aligned to curricula, it's up to date with CPD, And the learning objectives need to be appropriate in the local area for each organisation. Got to be conscious that there's a variety of modalities that are now present and developing in simulation, virtual realities, other types of realism within our training is important to recognise, and that will be developed in the future. Can we go to the next slide? So the next slide is all about how we make sure that we bring in all of our professional groups. This isn't about medicine or nursing, it's actually about all the professional groups who contribute when we're looking after a patient. And this might be in an emergency situation or in a well-managed situation like an elective theatre procedure, critical instance that might happen there, to get everybody in the team involved. Next slide, please. And the next slide is about accessibility. It's imperative that we use all the facilities that we know that, sorry, it's the slide before that. We use all the facilities that we know we've now got across the whole of Wales to their maximum effectiveness. We're aware from our own audit that there are numerous places across Wales that have really good simulation facilities, and it's important to put people together with those to make sure that they're being used to their best outcomes and serve the local learners and the local patients. Next slide is about how we are embedding the duty of quality in this, and the quality management framework, which includes how we deal with quality assurance, quality planning, quality control, quality assessment, are all being adapted for our simulation strategy. And you can see how it's delivered across there with faculty development, CPD, content development, content delivery, and evaluation. Which takes me on to our penultimate slide, which is how our work streams in this strategy are being utilised. It's being utilised to engage people in partnerships. Sorry, it's the next slide, Fiona. Particularly about good communication, collaborations with partnerships, and utilising proper digital platforms and digital advances. Supporting our simulation delivery. You've gone one ahead. Supporting our simulation delivery to make sure it's accessible, as I've said, it's interprofessional, and it maintains good professional standards and appropriate levels of CPD. Bottom right is designing our future directions, touching on some of the things I've already said, making sure it's evidence-based, it's up to date, it has a research background to support it, and we develop our technologies as time goes on. And lastly, promoting quality, both within the faculty, both in standards, and both in evaluating it. So we can go to our final slide, which is about how we're improving quality through simulation. So this document was produced in March of this year and is now being utilised and adapted by all 4 UK nations and part of ASFI as well. So simulation societies we're working closely with to develop this with experts and other experts who are linked into high quality simulation. So that's how we're going forward. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gosh. Well, look, we've come to the end of the showcase. We've had 24 people attending, and we're left with 16 outside there. Can I just say thank you very much to everyone coming and attending today's AGM and showcase. I'll repeat, I'm really proud to be chair of this organisation. I'm really grateful for the partnerships that we've created. I'm really grateful and respect the leadership that's been shown by Alex and the executive team. And I'm really proud and thankful for the hard work that our staff put in. I want to pay particular thanks to my Vice Chair, Ruth, to the Chair of our Audit Committee, Jill, and the Chair of our Education, Commissioning and Quality Committee, Tina Donnelly. it's an honour to serve as an independent member on this board, but in particular, I think we're all committed to making sure that we set the right culture for the NHS and for the future. So thank you very much, everybody. And with that, that's the end of the business. Thank you. Can you tell me that everything's switched off, please, Fiona?